Okay, it looks like we are live. Let me turn this down. So, sorry if there's a delay. It doesn't always tell us that we're live straight away, which is fun. Okay, today's story is from a website called bedtime.com, and there's lots of free stories on there, so I thought it would be really helpful to use a resource like that today. And it is called Connor and the Clone Machine, and it is by Luke. So, if you see me looking that way, it's because it's on my screen. I think it's ready. For 2 years, Connor and his friend Jeremy were spending their spare time on their newest invention, the clone machine. Consisting of many well-thought-out components, they felt like the time and hard work would pay off. The clone machine would be used on many objects for the convenience of everyone, including the cloning of people. There was only one problem, however. The machine wasn't tested on humans yet. Are you sure? Asked Jeremy, scratching his head and looking at the masterpiece. Almost sure of it, Connor replied. If all goes well, we'll have a clone of each other in no time. He walked over to the main control panel and inserted a key. With a clockwise turn, the machine whirred up with a soft humming sound. Just a few more things. If the molecules of our bodies are broken down and cloned, then hopefully our whole solar system and our whole system will be replicated. So many things could go wrong, though, Jeremy exclaimed. But we have done tests before, Connor nodded enthusiastically. He said, if you are so unsure that this will work, then I will do it myself. Connor trotted up to the door of the system and opened it. The inside was made of metal, but the scanner would not process it, as long as nothing would block the IT. A bright round light was established on the top of the machine to shine down on the object, in this case Connor, to ensure an accurate result. All was set. Wish me luck, Connor said, saluting Jeremy. I'll see you on the other side. He closed the door and stood still. Connor gave Jeremy a thumbs up, and he pressed the button on the side. He could immediately feel a strange sensation, almost as if someone was tickling him from the inside. Suddenly, a bright green flash came before him, showing that the process of the cloning had started. Connor tried to remain calm, keeping his arms at his side and taking deep breaths. Hi. A heat wave started to occur at his feet, and it slowly travelled up to his head. After a mere 2 minutes, everything stopped. Connor, still afraid to move, gestured towards Jeremy to ask if it was okay to move. Wow, Jeremy said. You can come out. Hi, everyone. Connor slowly moved his right arm towards the door handle. As he turned it, he was almost scared to see what the other side of the clone machine had. As Connor walked out of the machine, he could hear something else moving inside of the clone machine itself. A figure had appeared on the other side, and it looked exactly like Connor. His jaw dropped. Well, hello there, said the other Connor. I guess this thing did work. What do you think? The real Connor just stared, awed at what he was seeing. It had worked. Yeah, it did, he said, still shocked. So, how are you? I feel new, said the cloned Connor. Of course, that's because I was just made, wasn't it? He laughed and then walked over to Jeremy. Are you his lab partner? Cool. Clone Connor had just went over to the clone machine and went inside. "Wow," he said, a little bit muffled because the door had just closed. "I wonder what this button does." Just then a green light appeared above the machine. "Uh-oh," Jeremy said. "He's cloning himself again." In the distance, a laugh was heard inside. "This tickles." Minutes later, the cloned Connor came out. Just as he was about to speak, another cloned Connor came out. "Wow," said all three Connors. "We're identical." Just as they were all getting ready to sit down, another Connor appeared. Wait. The machine had just started to replicate more and more Connors, all of which were piling out of the end of the machine, all new and just as confused as everyone else. Jeremy sighed. This is going to be a long day. That is the end of that story. I do have a couple of other stories I can read. Yeah, they're not very sciencey, I'm afraid. We could read another of our old bear stories. I'm not sure which ones I've read at the moment. Let me have a quick look. Do we want to have another bear story? I can see there's a few people there. I'm taking that as a yes, Anuska. Okay, let me find which stories we've done. Hi, everyone. Okay. Now, I'm afraid this isn't going to be a sciencey story, but we will read about, I believe, a special giraffe. Let me just double check. Got to find the front page. There we go. Shall we read about Jolly Snow? I am going to close that curtain because I can't see. There we go. Right, we will do one bear story. Old Bear. Lisa, if you go to our Facebook page, Old Bear is on there. I can send it to you if you like. Okay, this is called Jolly Snow. It was cold and grey outside. Jolly Tall, the giraffe, had been gazing out of the window for days. "Well, what are you waiting for?" asked Rabbit. "I'm waiting for it to snow," said Jolly. "It is winter, isn't it?" "It doesn't always snow in winter," said Rabbit. "In fact, it hardly ever does," said Duck gloomily. "I know where there's some snow," said Little Bear. "It must be left over from last winter. I'll get it for you." Without waiting to explain, Little Bear rushed out of the room. In a moment he was back again, carrying a large glass bubble. Inside the bubble they could see a little house and a tree covered in a layer of tiny white snowflakes. "Is that all snow does?" asked Jolly, staring into the bubble. "Does it just lie around making things whiter than usual?" "Of course not," said Little Bear. "That wouldn't be any fun. You can make it into balls and throw it." "Or slide on it," said Zebra. "And jump in heaps of it," said Rabbit. "And make footprints." "You can build things with it too," said Duck. "Goodness," said Jolly. "There doesn't look enough of it for that." Holding the glass bubble tightly, Little Bear jumped up and down. A flurry of snowflakes leaped from inside the tiny house and tree and rushed around inside the glass. "Look at it now!" he squeaked. "Well, there's still not enough to make a snowball," said Jolly. "And anyway, you can't get it out," said Duck. "Wait a minute," said Zebra. "I know where there's lots of snow." These are some of my favourites too, Lisa. She led the way to the kitchen, where Bramwell Brown was busy making some special biscuits. To stop the biscuit dough sticking to the rolling pin, he was shaking flour from a flour shaker. "Whoopee!" cried Zebra, dashing under the falling flour. "I'm in a snowstorm!" At no time at all. Her black stripes had almost disappeared. Rabbit tried to gather up a pawful of the flour. "Well, it's not very good for snowballs," he said. "It doesn't stick together." "But it's perfect for dough balls!" cried Little Bear, rolling up a piece of dough and throwing it at Rabbit. The dough ball stuck to Rabbit's bottom and looked like an extra tail. "Well, this flour snow doesn't come off," said Zebra, jumping up and down trying to shake herself clean. "I think you're going to need a bath," said Bramwell. Some very mucky bears there. I've just realised you couldn't see Rabbit properly because of the light. There you go. He filled a dish with soapy water and the snowy zebra climbed in. She began to splash about, sending bubbles flying everywhere. "Well, it's still not coming off," she grumbled. "It just gets stickier and stickier." "Well, flour and water make a sort of glue," said Duck. "You'll probably have to stay white forever." "No, you won't," said Bramwell kindly. "We'll get you clean." All the scrubbing and splashing made even more bubbles. "Snow bubbles!" cried Little Bear, jumping about, popping them with his paws. "Hurry up, Zebra! We want to use your bath as a snow machine." After lots of rubbing and scrubbing, Zebra's stripes at last reappeared. The others wrapped her in a warm towel and looked into the bath. "What have you done with all the bubbles?" asked Little Bear. "Bubbles never last," said Duck, "and anyway, they would have made very sloppy snow. Why don't we go and see if Old Bear has any ideas?" Old Bear was in the dining room, cutting out paper decorations. He'd made paper stars, paper bells, and paper lanterns. He'd even made paper snowflakes. "You can't really play with these," said Little Bear, trying to slide on a snowflake. "No, you can't," said Old Bear, rescuing his decoration. "They're only meant for looking at." "Well, we want some snow for Jolly," said Rabbit. "Snow you can play with." "What about these?" said Old Bear, scattering a blizzard of paper pieces into the air. "Lovely," said Rabbit. "And nice and slippery too," said Little Bear, taking a run at a heap of them and skidding along on his bottom. "What we need is a sledge," said Rabbit, "or Little Bear will wear out his trousers." He fetched a cardboard box, and Bramwell cut away the sides. Duck tied a string to the front, and they pulled it along to test it. "Now, if we had a slope," said Rabbit, "we could whiz down it in the sledge." "I don't think I could," said Jolly. "I wouldn't fit in it." "Never mind," said Bramwell. "You can help with the slope." Bramwell Brown disappeared into the bedroom and came back pulling a large white sheet. He gave the corner to Jolly. "Now," said Bramwell, "when the others climb on, lift up your end and they should slide all the way down." Rabbit and Little Bear pushed the sledge on the sheet and climbed in. "There's only room for two," said Rabbit. "Don't worry," said Zebra. "I'll slide on my tummy." And as soon as they were ready, Little Bear called out to Jolly, "1, 2, 3, go!" Jolly and Bramwell lifted their end of the sheet. Nothing happened. "Wobble it a bit," called Rabbit. "We seem to be stuck." Jolly and Bramwell shook the sheet as hard as they could, and suddenly the toys found themselves sliding very fast to the other end. "Look out!" cried Little Bear as the sledge whizzed off the sheet, across the room, and crashed into the wall on the other side. "I think we need a softer landing," said Rabbit, fluffing up his flattened fur and helping Little Bear to his feet. He piled up a heap of cushions against the wall, and then all three toys bravely climbed back onto the sheet. "Ready, steady, go!" they called to Jolly. Up went the sheet, down went the toys, straight into the heap of cushions. As they landed, clouds of feathers puffed out of a little hole in one of the cushions and filled the room. "Look! It's feather snow!" cried Little Bear, making the hole bigger with his paw and jumping on the cushions to make more feathers escape. Very soon all the toys were jumping in the feathers. They rolled in them, crawled through them, and piled them in heaps. "Is this like snow?" asked Jolly. "It's better," said Little Bear. "It doesn't melt and it doesn't make you cold." "Well, let's put some round the windows," suggested Rabbit. "Then it will look as if real snow has settled there." He climbed up to the window-sill and began to pile feathers in each corner. When he reached the third window pane, he stopped and looked, then looked again. "Someone's already done this one," he called to the others. The windows did have a white covering on the edges, but it was on the outside. "It isn't feathers," cried Little Bear excitedly. "It's real snow." All the toys crowded onto the sill and stared out of the window in amazement. "Now we can play outside," said Zebra. "Well, actually, it looks a little bit deep for me," said Little Bear. "And a bit cold for me," said Old Bear. At that moment Bramwell Brown came into the room carrying a huge plateful of his special snowflake biscuits. "I think what you need is some of my snow," he said. Jolly Tool thought about the flour snow, and the feather snow, and the bubble snow, and the paper snow, and then he looked at the real snow floating down outside. "I really like all kinds of snow," he announced, "but," he added, munching a snowflake biscuit, "Bramwell snow is probably the snow I like the best." And that is the end of story time for today. Thank you guys for joining me. And we will see you tomorrow for stories and craft and all sorts of activities. Thank you, everyone. Bye, everyone.